I'll tell you this. I didn't meet the founders of Quest till I was 46 years old. And a lot of people, their trajectory is already set. Like, they're already thinking, okay, my 401k, I'm going to retire at 55. So I think it's never too late to dive into something. And don't let listen, we all have self-doubt. It creeps in my brain every day in some way. But
me too.
Like, I have anxiety about speaking in public, but I'm going to do it because I know I have a story, right? And if I could change one person's life, it's worth telling a story, right?
Totally.
Welcome to the Fitness CEO Podcast, a show dedicated to helping fitness entrepreneurs launch and grow successful gyms. Here's your host, Bryce Henson.
Hey friends, welcome back to another amazing episode of the Fitness CEO Podcast. And before I introduce today's guest, I want to give you a friendly reminder to give us a like, give us a subscribe on YouTube, and share this message with a friend so that way we can keep producing this content for you for free. So now to introduce today's guest, who's a dear friend of mine, been waiting for this interview for quite some time. He is a former U.S. Marine. He is a former LAPD on the reserves, but most importantly and most significantly from the business community, he started as an intern and worked his way up as the chief communication officer for Quest Nutrition, which is the giant juggernaut in the nutrition and health space. And starting in 2010, he worked with the organization all the way through 2019, where they were acquired for $1 billion by the Atkins company. Mr. Bruce Cardenas, welcome to the show. My friend Bruce Cardenas, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. An honor to be here.
Oh, pleasure to have you. And this has been on the books for, probably about 6 months now.
Yeah, so going back and forth with the scheduling.
Finally came to fruition.
Yes.
So my friend, we got a lot to talk about from your experience as a Marine, from the LAPD, from Global Protection Services, and all the way to being a C-level executive at Quest Nutrition, which is certainly going to be a very big talking point since our audience are interested in entrepreneurship and business ownership. So a lot to unpack here. Before we get there, give us the backstory. Where are you from? How'd you make out to California?
It's still a little bit of a blur, but I grew up in a very small town called Highbridge, New Jersey, middle-class kid. I was a D and C average student. I didn't aspire to do anything. I think my parents, there was 5 of us, and I was the only one that didn't have conversation about college with. I think they thought I was going to be a blue-collar worker. Fortunately, I always wanted to be a cop. It was going to be a boyhood dream to be a police officer. And I got out of high school, and I was friends with the police department. There was a 6-man department, and I said to the chief one day, hey, how do I apply to become a police officer? And they knew me pretty well, and they said, listen, Bruce, in his own kind way, you're young, you're immature, and you're not ready. But if you go in the Marine Corps, I'll hire you when you get out. Grabbed my best friend, Bob Lewandowski, and said, we're going to the Marine Corps. Ended up in Paris Island, and I realized there's a big world out there once I left New Jersey.
Ooh.
As you know, you grow up somewhere and you think, that's it, right? There's nothing else. And I realized, wow, there's a big world.
Where's Paris Island?
Paris Island is down in the Carolinas, a little offset right by the ocean.
Yep.
A horrible place. If you ever see Full Metal Jacket, that's a little bit of a depiction of how it's an interesting place.
Copy that.
But you grow up 12 weeks and you go from a boy to a man.
Real quick.
Very quickly.
So then how'd you make it from Paris Island, going through that out to...
So I was fortunate enough to travel the world. I got on some pretty cool details. I figured out, I guess I was always a relationship guy, but I didn't know what that meant. I just knew how to develop relationships, and my bosses liked me, even in the Marine Corps. And I was on a security detail for one of the generals, and so I traveled the world. And part of my side gig was, or side time, I was, going to school at night, and I was also powerlifting. So I was in a powerlifting meet in San Diego, and there was a career day going on in base, and I was ready to get out, and I thought, wow, this is beautiful weather. Look at the amount of money. At the time, I don't even remember what it was. It seemed like a lot of money to become a police officer. So I said, let me stay here and apply for these police departments, and that's what I did.
That's how you made your way out?
Yeah, I said, well, I'll stay here.
Yeah. We were talking offline, coming from the Midwest, you coming from the East Coast, show up in Southern California thinking, yeah, this sounds about right.
Yes, and of course, my mom's like, come back to New Jersey and be a cop. I'm like, Mom, I'm not sure. I think California might be the place, and I started applying, and that was even long before online. You'd have to get a paper application to fill it out and mail it in, and so I applied at like a dozen different police departments.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, before we go into LAPD, kind of unpacking your experience in the Marines, and by the way, thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Really appreciate that. Mm-hmm. And interestingly enough, we have a lot of Fit Body Bootcamp owners that come from the service, come from the military. We're just talking offline. They like a mission, they like an SOP, they like specifically a tactical focus and instructions on how to execute. So I think there's a lot of paradigms or parallels, I should say, to business ownership within our franchise. But but really from your lens, if you take a 30,000 foot view back, what were some of the biggest learning lessons that you had? Probably some challenges, adversities, because usually they make the best learning lessons. And then really, if you can even apply to, how a gym owner, a business owner, entrepreneur could actually take those lessons and apply them.
For sure. And I think this is very applicable, especially if you're going to open up a gym or any sort like that, because discipline is just a part of life. And even to this day, like, I'm the most disciplined person. I have a regimen. I wake up the same time every morning, go work out. But what I discovered in the Marine Corps, it's organization and discipline, which goes hand in hand with running a business, right? And teamwork. I mean, one thing I discovered early on, there's no I, there's no me. It's we, it's a team. And when you're going to run whether it's a military organization or a gym or a franchise, it's everybody. It's from the janitor to the COO that's going to make you succeed. And I think early on I figured out that structure, organization, and discipline is everything you need in life.
Totally.
It doesn't matter whether you're in the military or you're running a household or a business, right?
Yeah. What was the biggest challenge for you in that experience, would you say?
The biggest challenge, I think, was failure. Or the perception of failing, or always being at the level of your peers or above that.
Yeah.
Because in the Marine Corps particularly, we run at a high level.
Yeah.
And it's very competitive.
Yeah.
So you just wake up, okay, I'm competing to be the better person every day, whether it's boot camp or whether it's just out in your regular job or training or shooting. I was fortunate enough, I shot as a kid in a little bit of an organization in the NRA, and so I was the number one shot in my platoon. And there's so much credibility in the Marine Corps to be a good shot. That's almost as good as being like the top fitness guy.
They put that in the pedestal.
Yeah, I graduated the top shooter in my platoon, and they're like, you're it. You're it. Yeah. As good as the guy that does 300 push-ups.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Well, I guess we'll transition to LAPD. Before we do, any other, words of wisdom or anything that is of value that our audience could take from your experience in the military?
I got to tell you, if I did it over again, because one thing the military does, all these things that you learn, it's an easy to roll out of the military and start a business. You're already set up, you're already structured. And most people in the military, if they're smart, save money. Yeah. They have sign-in bonuses now of pretty substantial amount. This is ideal for this kind of business, right?
Totally.
You already have the fees to start the franchise. So I think if I had to do it over again, I would have probably saved more money and started like a gym business. Even if I still became a cop, I could have gym business on the side, There
you go, man.
Yeah.
Words of wisdom from the man, Bruce. All right, well, now we'll transition to LAPD. I'm curious, what the similarities were, what that experience look like. And I always talk about, the big highlights, but also the challenges and the learning lessons on what you learn. And again, for our audience, that we can apply to, general business ownership.
The LAPD was interesting. It was a boyhood dream, and LAPD just happened to be I consider the best police department in the country, so it was just
intense.
Amazing. Yeah, intense, and I graduated, and I dove right into it. I think, honestly, within the first few years, there was a lot of turmoil. I mean, the Rodney King incident happened, and I worked in that area prior to that happening. I was part of the OJ trial. I was at the courthouse every day, so there was a lot of things, historic things, the earthquake, the riots. There was a lot of learning and growing up. And what I learned early on, I think I told you this off camera, the world is not black and white. I've always lived in the gray zone. It's important as a police officer because some people just, hey, it's the letter of the law. I always think there's a spirit of the law. And it's really important, even how you treat people in business. We could go strictly by the book of HR and the law, or, well, is there a gray area where maybe someone screwed up, but you have to treat them in a different way? Because one thing I always tell people is you could destroy someone's life over no license or a minor infraction by impounding someone's car. And I learned that pretty early on. I used to teach my partners, listen, not everyone's a bad person. They may be in a bad situation. We're all a paycheck away from some crisis in life. And I learned that early on. My first training officer was a pretty hardcore guy. He was a little cynical, a little rough on people, actually. But I also had a lieutenant who really pulled me aside one time and said, listen, there's 2 paths you're going to go. And you have to figure out the path you want to go. And I decided to go on the path of, listen, there's good people out here. Let's treat them with kindness, and let's live in the gray area and by the spirit of the law instead of letter of the law. And it served me well because how you treat people, I want to be treated the same way, right? And I think about if your wife or girlfriend or boyfriend are stopped, how do you want them to be treated, right? And not every experience is the best with police. And I always preach that even now to guys and girls I work with, just treat people nice. There's always going to be a bad person, but for the most part, even people that do stupid things are not bad people. Mm-hmm.
I love the spirit of the law, not the letter of the law.
Yeah.
I've actually never heard that, but I think there's so many applications when I think from a business perspective, because, in any franchise system or business system, you have to have rules and protocols and SOPs, and those are very important. Otherwise, your organization would not be an organization. It'd be chaos. The same token, what we teach our franchise partners is to treat them as guidelines. And you said it, we both said it in just very different ways. ways. But I think when you're dealing with people, at the end of the day, there's a lot of things that you have to factor in. And I've always been in the same belief. I can see black and white, but I can also see gray. And every time I gravitate to the gray, just as long as I'm not being irresponsible, it typically works out to my benefit. And I'm hearing the same thing.
For sure. Listen, I've always been responsible, but there's also that latitude. Even today in today's corporate world and owners and businesses, I talked to a CEO the other day and his HR director said, we should fire this person. And he said, why can't we just talk to them? Let's send them to HR, what do you call it? He screwed up. He said something silly at work.
HR department.
Send him to a course. And but right now I think people are so nervous. Like sometimes it's okay to mess up and salvage it and make a better person out of them. And that's what I learned as a cop.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Just remember for the thought, we were just talking off camera and you talked about your first lieutenant, if you will, was a bit cynical. And my first thought, Bruce, from your lens, you just came off the Marine, you're from Jersey and you get thrown in the LAPD, okay, with all the things that you just experienced in your career. My first thought is how do you not become cynical? And I think that's a good question. One, I'm genuinely curious on. And then two, for our gym owners who kind of had the same problems in very different scale, right? But how do you, kind of make sure you're not numb and you're actually treating people and meeting where they're at? So I'm curious from your lens, like, how did you not let that citizen, get the best of you?
And that wasn't easy because I'll be honest, the first day in the car, he drew a picture on a pad and it was a picture of a face with big eyes and big ears and no mouth. And he said, that's you. He goes, you need to be all ears, all eyes, and I don't want you talking to me. And it made me feel like this is not the person I want to be. I mean, I want to be able to ask questions and learn. I'm a learner, right? To this day, I want to learn something new every day. So he started making me feel not good about myself. So thank God we switched training officers every couple months, but I could have easily gone down that path of just becoming an asshole, right? But I think with my upbringing, my parents were always very kind, disciplined, and they weren't pushovers, but they taught me, I think, the right way of how you treat people. Yeah. So I really made some conscious decisions. Like, listen, he's going to be hard on me. I was like in the Marine Corps again for my first few months, right? But I said he's not going to break me, and I'm still going to be kind to people. I don't need to be rough with people just because he thinks I should be, And
I think that serves you specifically well, but just anyone well, especially watching this. But I think it's really, flattering from you, Bruce, because you're a big guy, you're a very fit guy. You're an Olympic weightlifter. You've had an incredible amount of experience in the service. And on one hand, you could look at you and you're intimidating, but you're not. You actually have this this energy that actually is like an incredible connector. And I think that goes so far in your working with people, especially with a guy your stature.
Yeah. I just learned a way to communicate with people. I got in trouble one time. I'll tell you, there was one time when I used to work down in the ghetto, and there was a lot of hardcore guys out of prison, big jack dudes, and I was pretty big then. Yeah. And there's a way you can talk to people. You could either be rude and obnoxious, or I'd strike a conversation and say, they'd ask me, how many wheels you pushing? How many plates are you doing in the gym? That's what they'd say. And I remember one time I got written up, but I did a push-up contest in the streets with 3 guys because they thought I couldn't do 50 push-ups. I was in full uniform.
Prove them wrong.
But my point is, I like to connect with people. Yeah, maybe they might have not been the greatest dudes, but I had now a common ground to talk on. Yeah. They weren't looking at me like a bad guy anymore. And they're the same guys you go back to next week and say, hey, I'm looking for someone. Can you help me out? So sometimes you got to be in that zone of not just following the rules.
Yeah. That's right. Well, through that experience, then it kind of transitioned into your global protection business that you kind of spun up. So would love to hear a little bit about that.
That just kind of happened. So I was working off duty for a retired sergeant in Beverly Hills, and there again, it was all relationships. Security is relationships, pre-planning and relationships. It's not the guy you think of at the front door of a club that's 300 pounds. It's really more planning and logistics, and that's what I started doing for these clients. And in a short time, I figured out, well, let me start my own business. And there again, I called on people I knew and said, hey, I started this business. A friend of mine had a pretty successful limousine company, and he started referring me people, and one thing after another, all of a sudden I'm taking care of half the artists at Sony Music. I'm still a cop, so I'm trying to manage my time. Every day off, I'm flying somewhere with big names like Mariah Carey and Ricky Martin, and it just evolved. So I transitioned from the police to do that full time. That's what happened. But I still maintain my status as a reserve officer with the sheriffs. But the security really blew up.
Till this day, right?
Yeah, till this day. I'm still reserve. It's been years and years now, over 30 years.
Okay.
But the security really became a real passion play for me. once again, you're in the service industry, right? It's not so much the protection, it's all the pre-planning and thinking and getting people in and out of places. And
so what's the skill set there? Because when, one, you're an extremely well-connected guy, like looking at your social sites, to your point, Mariah Carey and Ricky Martin and, The Rock and, just the list goes on. I'm curious from a connection perspective, we'll get to that, but really you talked about, the security business. You don't just think of a big 300-pound guy, which is the first thing I think of, and probably our audience is thinking of as well.
Big bouncer.
Right. But taking a step back, looking at the overall strategy, the logistics of it, what's the skill set involved in that?
The skill set is not, obviously being, prepared and thinking through and the logistics, but also the social cues and know how to fit in how do you work around these clients, because some of them are high maintenance, some of them are low maintenance, some are big demand, and you almost have to sometimes be a wallflower out of the way, and a lot of people don't get that. Like I say this, when you're in the service industry, you almost have to know your place, right? Like I'm here, I know where I am and I know where they are, and I'm here to serve them.
Yep.
And people don't always get their head around that. They're like, well, I'm the CEO of a company. It doesn't really matter. You're here to serve them. And that's what I've done extremely well with, being able to stay out of the way, but managing their problems where they're not aware of it. Do you know what I mean by that? So, and that's where I gained a lot of reputation by just doing that.
I want to talk about that actually for a little bit from a reputation, from a relationship perspective, because interestingly, what we teach all of our franchise partners in our brand is primarily we're not in the fitness industry, contrary to popular belief. Primarily, we're in the relationship business. We're in the connection business. And Bruce, being introduced to you by the co-host of the show, Bedros Keuilian, who's an incredible connector and among himself.
Amazing.
You are certainly right there with him. So, you talked about the relationship you build. What are some strategies on how to develop relationships, how to build a network, and really do what you've done?
I think it comes pretty easy for me, but I don't always, when I build a relationship, I'm not reaching out to you because I want something. I just want to be connected to you. And that's what I tell people, even if I owned a gym. Listen, everyone in the neighborhood should know who you are. You don't even need to solicit and be a gym member. Just say, I'm just letting you know I'm down the street here. If you ever need anything, let me know. And all of a sudden they're like, wow, that guy Bryce was a nice guy. I am thinking about joining a gym. It's no different with the security business. I would just let people know who I was and what I did. And I'd hear from people 12 months later, hey, I have a problem. And sometimes regular people too, not just celebrities, but women or men are going through a problem or divorce or a legal issue, stalking issue. And they remembered me because I always just connected with them.
Do you think that just factory installed for you? It's a zone of genius? And where did it come from?
I don't know where it came from. I really, because I sometimes think about that. I want to say it came from my parents, like the cliche of don't ever show up empty-handed.
Yeah.
But they didn't teach me that. I don't know. I just started doing it. Like, even when I was a cop, I would do things for people. I would get kids involved with the DARE program. I think it's just there's something in my DNA, I think, about just wanting to help people and connect people and do greater things.
Yeah.
And if you have the horsepower, especially now as you get older and you have more and more connections, like that's what I love about Pedro. Sometimes he'll just text me and say, hey, I want you to meet so and so. Oh, that's cool. And when you're in that position, to me it's just a good feeling.
Totally.
And even if you get nothing out of it, who cares? But two people connected and maybe they went on to do great things,
Yeah, it's like one, it's just genuinely good for humanity.
Yeah, and I do that now in the gym. All the members know me. They know who I am. They know I was the former Quest guy. They know everything I did, and I just like connecting people. I don't care if you're a realtor. I'll make sure I connect you with someone that can help you do deals,
Yeah.
It just feel good.
From a celebrity perspective, I'm curious, like I said, you went through the Rolodex. Just you are extremely well connected. I've seen you with photographs with, all the A-list celebrities. Hulk Hogan is an example. Just the list goes on. What are some highlights from that experience? And also too, maybe some lessons about humanity and relationships and just celebrities in general that, the average person is not familiar with.
Celebrities have the same problems we do, right? Maybe on a different scale. And I've actually got involved with some celebrity relationships, just taking care of them and becoming their therapist. So, I think celebrities have the same challenges we do, just on different levels. And a lot of people don't think that. They're like, oh, they're rich. They're worth, millions of dollars. How could they have these problems? But they're all human beings. And I've been pretty fortunate to help them out of a lot of problems, besides just security, just in general, just problems.
Just in life.
Yeah.
Just from the attitude of, being a go-giver.
Yeah, exactly.
What's up, my friend? Bryce here. Now, you might know me as the co-host of this podcast and the CEO of FitBody. But what many people don't know is that I actually began my journey as a FitBody franchise owner. Now, being an owner, I wake up every day absolutely doing what I love. I live my passion. I help people transform their lives and have both financial and personal freedom. And it's for these reasons and many more that other owners join the brand and open their own FitBody locations too. So if you're looking to build a highly profitable business, take charge of your life, and create an impact in your very own community, then opening a Fit Body gym might be a perfect fit for you. Now, to see if a territory is available in your area, as we have very limited spots due to our incredible growth, go ahead and visit our website at fbbcfranchise.com to complete an application. Well, thanks, and back to the show.
All right. I want to transition now to Quest. And certainly that is a huge organization. You guys have just, did incredible work and still do. Obviously, the company's transitioned, but your title, not initially, initially started as an unpaid intern, which is a wild story. I'm looking forward to hear, but really worked your way up to the chief communications officer, which is pretty phenomenal. So can you actually walk us through that story? And I know there's some lessons that we can be taken from it.
I mean, even when I look back, I'm thinking, how did this happen? Because I always start out by saying I was the least qualified person to work in a nutrition company, other than I was a meathead and I ate protein, right? Well, I worked out. But I met Shannon Penna, who goes by Quest Creator on Instagram. She worked out at the same gym as I did. And we'd make small talk. And I remember when she did cardio, she read hardcore bodybuilding magazines. And I thought, that's kind of interesting. Like most women, And she gave me a protein bar one day. And at the time, they only had 2 flavors. They're a fairly new company. They had peanut butter and vanilla almond crunch. And I tried them.
About what year is this, roughly?
2010-ish. Okay. And I tried them. And I obviously grew up in that era of eating protein bars and had some really bad ones before. And I thought, these are pretty amazing. The taste and texture, it's really like a good bar. The next couple of weeks I saw her, I said, the bars are great. I said, by the way, a friend of mine's having a celebrity tennis tournament at Riviera Country Club or golf tournament. If you want to get me some product, I could probably get in some people's hands. And they're like, you can? Oh my God. So she got me product, delivered it to my house. It was, and at the time it was like maybe a few boxes, and we weren't a big business at all. And I remember I went to that tournament, and a friend of mine was doing the public relations. And I said, hey, can you get some pictures for me? And can you get some video? And there was really, before Facebook had just started, there was no Instagram, Twitter, or none of that yet. Yeah. Facebook was just beginning. And I took some pictures. I had a BlackBerry. I didn't have an iPhone yet. It was still BlackBerry. There wasn't even iPhones out yet. And I remember I sent him the pictures, and I got him a couple people doing taste testing on camera, and they were like, wait, how'd you do this? Like, what's this about? So that just evolved. I started doing that. I got on a set of Extra with Mario Lopez, where he actually talked about it on camera, was giving away, he does giveaways in the audience, and that was when we were nobody.
Was that because of your security business?
I was doing the security. So by the way, I'm doing the security on a set, and I said, oh, by the way, I'm helping my friends out that have this nutrition company. I'm thinking, and they're like, sure, we'll try it. So they were giving it out to the audience. Then I mail it to Jessica Simpson. I figured, you know what, the same people I'm protecting, I might as well send them this product. And I just said, they're friends of mine. That's all I would ever say. I never said like I had an affiliation with the company.
Was that intentional or?
Well, I think it was just, I don't know what, at the time, it's interesting because I didn't go to school for marketing or PR. And I kind of just became that guy. And people, I think, appreciate it. And it evolved. And I remember Ron, Shannon's husband, we went to an event one day, and he said, hey, we're stealing from you. You're doing more for us than we're doing for you. We are literally like taking advantage of you. I said, no, not at all. I love what I'm doing. I'm just getting product in people's hands and building relationships. And he said, listen, starting Friday, we're going to start paying you. I said, no, you don't need to pay me. No, we're going to pay you. Give it to charity. Keep doing your day job. Keep doing your security. Keep doing your limo. Keep doing whatever you want, but we're going to pay you. And there was something that inherently happened once I started getting paid. I think it was like almost like a ethical, like I felt like, oh shit, now I really got to step up my game. They're paying me. And it wasn't a lot, but it was still, I'm getting money in my bank. And it kind of almost became, it's kind of hard to describe, but my why became so passionate. What they were doing, because what happened was people were writing us then over the next year on the blogs, hey, I lost 50 pounds. Quest became my go-to snack. I've replaced the bad food I was eating. And you'd get these stories, and people would be like crying, like I lost this weight, I was diabetic and not anymore. And it really became like I really had to sit back and say, wait, we're actually changing people's lives. Security was great, but it's just a service industry, and I still love it. But this was a new why. It was like, holy shit, we are changing people's lives. Like trainers were using us and fitness competitors. And it just became like a love affair, really. And I just fell in love with the process. And so I started building out the events department and the ambassador program. And at the time, Quest started growing so quickly. And I say this, the salespeople, all they really had to do was take orders. They weren't even, because it became such a demand. Yeah. You just write paper. Yeah. But no one was maintaining a relationship. So on an average year, I was out in the street or out in the road maybe 40 weekends a year. Ooh. Going to a city, a bodybuilding show, a CrossFit event,
Some sort of event.
an event,
Yeah.
GNC, Vitamin Shop golf tournaments, and it kind of became a running joke because I'd be in Boston on a Sunday, and then I'd be back in the office Monday and just start over again, and then leave on Friday or leave on Thursday, and that just became a rinse and repeat. And I did that, and we built out what I call the Wow Factory, which I discovered by reading Tony Hsieh's book, Delivering Happiness.
Yeah,
Actually, if you went outside my office, there was this big thing, Wow Factory. We're here to deliver happiness, and that's really what it became. And I remember Ron, there was times where he would say, Bruce, how much product did you send to people this month or give out? I said, I don't know, $3,500 worth. He goes, no, you got to triple that, man. Because he knew the value.
The ROI.
I got it in your hand.
Yeah.
And what I would do, Bryce, here's a bar for you and here's a bar for your friend or significant other, whatever you got. And then you would share it with somebody, right?
Oh, yeah.
That was the magic. I tell people now with brands, if you have a consumable item, get it in people's hands. Give it away. You want to make a billion-dollar brand? Give away millions of dollars worth of product. It's hard, though. It's hard because people are like, I don't have the budget.
If you want to make $1 billion, give away millions of dollars of product. I think there's a big lesson to glean there, my friend.
I don't care if you have apparel or widgets, or you could be in the retail, real estate business. Come up with something you could give someone that's tangible that they could remember you by. Now consumables is obviously easier.
Yeah. But you can apply that to the gym space. You can apply that to sessions and training and all that. I want to dive into the communication aspect because Bruce, in my lens at leading a franchise, running multiple teams, I say leadership is always the problem and always the solution, but really what it comes down to is communication. Communication is typically either deciding factor in what makes an organization incredible or limits its growth. Before we get into that, taking a look back at you connecting with Shannon, the Quest creator, what would you say is the big lesson in that? Because I'm looking at this and you're just showing up with all value, all heart, relationship, no agenda, but just trying to connect and then look at what this is done
evolved to. Yeah. I had no agenda. I mean, honestly, I tell people this. So I had a pretty nice office in El Segundo where the security business was. Nice, palatial, big TV, assistant. And I went to their office. It was in the city of Paramount, which is just below Compton. Mm-hmm. And I pulled up and it was like an industrial park, but a strip, like a little crappy one that was probably built in the 70s. And when I pulled up, I thought, they're not going to be in business in 6 months.
That was your first thought?
Because I walked in and said they had these two little offices, and this is crazy. We used to share these little mini desks like you get at IKEA for like your kid.
Yeah.
That's what they sat in. There was like 8 people in each office, and they manufactured bars there. And I literally thought to myself, wow, I hope they make it. I'm happy to know them, and I'll keep getting product and business, but I thought, there's no way. Like, is this going to be a dream? So there was no expectation in my head, I'm going to become an executive or I'm going to get equity or anything. I just thought, wow, I wonder if they're going to make it through the year. And literally, I never said that, but that's what you thought, right? So to me, it was just, hey, I'm helping out some cool people. And there was some chemistry that we had that I don't know it's hard to describe. When you connect with someone, I just felt, well, they're cool people. I might as well help them while they're in business, right? Little did I know, and things evolved, and the relationships I built are priceless. Like I prided myself after a while on building healthy relationships. And it's hard to say because it could have been awkward with Shannon. She could have gave me the bar and I could never talk to her again, right? But there was something that I felt compelled to tell her how good it was, and hey, I got this opportunity. And
well, I look at it from two different ways. The human element, which is just you're a go-giver, man. You can just feel the energy on camera. Hopefully, you can feel this man's energy. But just a go-giver, you have a warm heart. You're welcoming. You can tell you want others to succeed. I know that's a giant aspect of that, and obviously that translates to the service business, to our fitness business as well. What I see all the time is the owners that actually just want to give back and help other people. Typically speaking, they do the best. Even more so than the people that come in with, the business background and this, that, and the other, and they just see Fit Body Bootcamp as a business model, which is a business model. It's a successful business model at that, but it's a human business model, right? We're humans on the other side. So one aspect, I see that, and that's your zone of genius. And also, too, from a scientific approach, I'm huge into the study of psychology and persuasion. And there's a book by a gentleman named Dr. Cialdini, who is a researcher and a scientist at University of Arizona State, and he wrote a book. Actually wrote many books on persuasion and influence, and he broke down one of his books, and there are 6 weapons of influence, and one of them is the law of reciprocity. When you give something, without any agenda, typically human nature, we feel tugged to do the same. So not only just from just the fact that you're a good guy, but there's some science behind that as well. When you show up with the giving hand, typically good things happen.
For sure. And I found that, It's an incredible phenomenon, I think, and I encourage people to always do it.
Pulling down the thread a little bit more and kind of going back to Quest and the communications element play. We'll talk about communications, but one of the big things that you put on the map was Quest with CrossFit. And would love to, as I look at my notes here, you basically put, Quest on the map within the CrossFit community. I'm curious on what the strategic approach was that and really the business learning lesson.
It was pretty amazing, and I really admire the CrossFit community and what they do. I mean, I get my ass kicked every time I do a WOD. So there was a gym. It was CrossFit Boston, and one of the sales guys said, "Hey, Bruce, you might be interested. I know you work out and stuff, but this gym is buying like 25, 30 boxes a month, which was a lot at the time, just a caddy." So I reached out to him. They said, "Oh, we're doing an event in like 6 weeks if you want to come." And I said, "Yeah, I've never been to a CrossFit event." So I flew out to Boston and went and met a lot of really cool people. Like, it's a very interesting community.
Oh, yeah.
And they eat. The one thing, the difference between CrossFitters and like bodybuilders, they don't diet, right? They consume. And what I found, and it's interesting, we didn't coin it. It's interesting when someone else coins your product a certain way, it's a lot easier, right? Because we didn't make any claims, but some of them would try and read the ingredients and try and say, well, these are paleo acceptable, these are paleo friendly, or keto friendly, whatever. And I said, okay, like we never disputed it, because you read it and say, okay, yeah, there's no added sugar, they're low carb, high protein, and all of a sudden people just started talking about in the CrossFit community. And then we did the Garage Games, which is a series down in Georgia, and we said, well, let's give it a shot with the regionals, and we sponsored a couple teams, and it just happened overnight. It literally, it's almost hard to describe, because it just became, people come, oh, I heard about these Quest bars, I need to have them, I need to try them, I need them in our box in our gym, and it just evolved. But that was every weekend I was going to a CrossFit event. And they're just some cool people.
Wow, that's a lot.
It really was cool. We launched our chips at the games in whatever year that was, and they were a home run. We actually shot content at Shannon's house. We had a couple of CrossFitters come to our house and do the meal prep, and it was cool. But it just happened, and I think it was a great. Unfortunately or fortunately for us, we had a new CMO come in, and hey, does this make sense to, here's the thing. I always tell people, this is a business thing too. People throw buzzwords around KPIs and return on investment, which is all important, right? Mm-hmm. At the end of the day, we all have finances, but I think sometimes people focus too much on what that means, because we couldn't really put a number on what we sold in the CrossFit community. Because to me, you're a CrossFit owner, you own a box or a gym, or you own your members go to Whole Foods and buy it. That's not trackable. We don't know where you're buying, right?
Yeah.
So that's what they tried to peg me. How many dollars do you think? I said, I don't know, $5 or $10 million. No, it's impossible. I go, well, we're doing all these events, and all they keep doing is talking about us. But I couldn't put a number to a sale, because you're buying at other places. And it didn't impress some people.
Well, I think there's two lessons there. One, from the relationship business and from the promotion of the event, just come with a giving hand.
Yeah.
Build relationships, get excited about your product, make sure everyone knows who you are. I mean, I'm thinking this for the local gym owner. That's what you need to be doing in your community. You need to be the mayor of your city. And when you do that, opportunity attracts. And it's also probably not a bad idea to have some numbers behind that as well, when you need to pitch that in the future.
For sure, but it's interesting. Like you're wearing your Fit Body Bootcamp shirt. And I always tell people when they talk to me in the gym, hey, what do you do? I'm a realtor. I'm a trainer. Well, how do I know you're a trainer? Why don't you have Body by Bryce or something? Like something cool instead of, because people bust my chops. I wore Quest 7 days a week. All my shirts, my sweatshirts, my pulleys, my hoodovers. And they would say, well, why do you wear so much Quest? I said, well, what's Nike paying you to wear that shirt? I'm getting paid pretty good to wear this shirt,
100%.
And I always tell you, if you have a brand, be proud of it.
100%.
I don't care if it says, looking for a house. I mean, it may sound kind of goofy, but at least I know what you're doing, right?
Amen to that.
Right? But I tell people in the gym, and I'm like, why not?
Let's go.
Right?
Love that. All right, Bruce. Before we switch over to the lightning round, you've been so gracious with your time, taking a 30,000-foot view at your experience, with Quest. You rose to the chief communications officer. You built incredible relationships. You threw awesome events. You got Quest, featured in a lot of great affiliations. What would you say was your biggest learning lessons, both like the highlights and also probably the lowlights, which then can translate to some things that really our audience can look out for in their journey?
Well, one of the learnings was, and as obviously I said earlier, we're a team, right? We became really big really quick, and I think people we stopped paying attention. I say we because I'm just as accountable, right? Even though I was out 40 weekends a year, we stopped paying attention to what the customers and the buyers were saying and the clients, right?
In what way?
Like I said, we were taking orders, right?
Yeah.
And when people, we had a formula. One of you talk about our would you say, worst day and our best day, if you will.
Yeah.
So our worst day was we had a formulation change. It wasn't a bad thing. We were following the science, and there was an article and a big conference about fiber. So we changed our fiber source. But what happened was...
You changed the source of fiber in the bar?
The actual, what it was called too then. So the layperson would read it, it says soluble corn fiber, and instead of what it used to be. And what happened was a few people, as you know, social media is powerful, right?
Oh, yeah.
So someone said, hey, oh shit, Quest cheapened their bar. Look what they did. And we had a couple food bloggers talk about it. And talk about a hit. We were doing about $400 million in sales, and we took a 25% hit.
Ooh.
It's a big number, right?
It's $100 million.
Yeah, and what happened was we weren't proactive. What happened was, I hate to say this, but I was out in the field saying, hey, I'm talking to these retailers, and they're not really impressed anymore. As a matter of fact, they moved our product from the top shelf lower. We're not paying attention. We're not calling them. We're not doing anything. And their salespeople, no, Bruce, the numbers are fine. Because, numbers don't hit right away, right? Mm-hmm. A few months later, the numbers start declining, and then they're calling us and saying, hey, what's going on? So we adjusted. We sent out a big newsletter and sent out 700,000 samples to everyone, and we eventually recouped. But my point is, that was a bad day, a bad time, and we weren't proactive on how we handled it. We weren't responsive to our partners. And one thing I tell people, I don't care how big you get, be responsive to your partners and your clients and your customers, because they're the ones paying your bills.
And I was going to say, what would you have done differently in hindsight? Communication.
We literally, I think we thought we were all that in a bag of chips, if you will, I say sometimes, and we weren't, right? We might have been a $400 million company, but I would say you're only as good as your last sale, right? You're only as good as your last gym you open and the last reputation. And if you don't maintain that, someone said to me one time, it was very painful for me to hear, said, you're a necessary evil, your brand. We have to have you because it sells so well, but you guys aren't good to work with. Ooh. To hear that from somebody, to say, I love your product, but I don't like your team. I want them to love our team, right?
Totally.
And we eventually switched that around, but there was people that's like, no, that you're overreacting. No, people don't like us. So now the best day we ever had, because I'll go to a positive, was we were named the second fastest growing company by Inc. 500 in all categories, not just nutrition, all categories. So number 2, 57,000% growth. And the number 1 company, which crazy, was in the same city as El Segundo, where we are. What are the odds? But they made these iPads for kids, and they unfortunately went out of business next year.
No.
So we kind of profess ourselves to be the number 1, right? But no, it's sad for them. Yeah. So that was a highlight, right? In a few short years, you're named the number 1 fastest growing company in the country. I mean, it's pretty cool, right?
That's incredible.
And then, as you know, it ended. We sold to Atkins, which is a pretty famous.
Oh yeah. In 2019, I want to say.
Yeah.
Well, congrats. Good.
Yeah.
That's a great story.
Yeah.
And good lessons to take for the audience as well on their business journey.
Yeah. But one thing I was going to share with you is interesting, a story I tell people, and I always tell people, don't ever dismiss anyone. And one thing I was just telling someone the other day, we all have FedEx people that come here, right? And DHL and UPS drivers. And there was a FedEx driver one time. This turned into a business thing for us. FedEx driver came in one day. It was 100 degrees out. And I was at the front desk, and he said, asked to use the restroom. I said, let me get you a bottle of water. And while he was getting the restroom, I got him a box of bars, gave him a box of bars, and I asked the receptionist, do we ever give product to people when they come to the front door? And no, not usually. I said, we need to start giving people product. So I gave this driver a box of bars. 2 weeks later, he sees me. I just happened to run into him in the parking lot. He says, hey, those bars were amazing. He goes, but I got to tell you something. My wife is a nutritionist, a nurse at a hospital. She took some to the hospital, turned all her staff onto them. On top of that, she's also the coach for our kids' soccer club. They're now buying it at the soccer club. On top of that, one of the dads owns 6 medical clinics, started buying them for the medical clinics. So I'm literally like, what? So me giving him a box of bars, I actually drew this like an org chart showing all the people he touched, because we're still friends these years later, and I still send him product. But my point is I never dismiss anyone. That UPS driver, give him product, give him a bottle of water, give him whatever you have. It built relationship. I mean, to this day, we're friends, and it's crazy. And if you wanted to talk about ROIs, it probably has been hundreds of thousands of dollars in business, just people they've touched.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so.
Well, if you want to create $1 billion company.
Right, give stuff away. But yeah, I always say don't ever dismiss anyone. Sometimes people don't think about the guy dropping off the package. Hook them up.
Oh, man. Bruce, you're amazing, dude. Well, we still have a few more minutes if you're up for it, but this has been awesome. But we'll transition to the lightning round, which is the last opportunity to be able to provide some awesome knowledge bomb to our audience. So my first question is, you seem like a very passionate guy. What's your biggest passion today and why?
I'm passionate about giving back, and I'm connected to a couple charities. Trina's Kids, which Dan Fleischman connected me to. So a lot of toy drives, a lot of back to school programs. Listen, I've been fortunate. I grew up middle class, but I never wanted for anything. I didn't know. We weren't rich, but my parents, I never wanted for anything. I see kids that want for things, don't even have a backpack to go to school. So I feel compelled, once you, to give back, right? You have a little bit of success, do something.
Oh, yeah.
So I do that, and then I work at the Midnight Mission on a lot of holidays, feeding the homeless. And I'm a real supporter of the vets. Like, I'm a vet. And one of the things when I was a cop, I dealt with a lot of vets, and it was something else I would explain to my partners. Like, some people are damaged now from their PTSD, but people don't really treat vets right. They think, they fought for our country, and now they're living on the street, sometimes by choice because they don't have the mental capacity to even really do things. But so I like doing stuff for the vets. And that's part of what we do at the Sheriff's Department. There's some vet programs we support. So that's a passion play for me.
Well, thank you for your service.
Yeah, thank you. But I really enjoy that.
Next up, what I got for you. What's your zone of genius, Bruce?
Zone of genius. That sounds so... I think my zone is building authentic relationships, real relationships,
totally.
Not bullshit relationships. Like, I know there's people, and Pedro's, it might be one of those people I know that say text, 3 people a day, and there's some formulas. I like touching base with people for no reason. Just check on you, And I think that's my zone of like building authentic relationships and have no expectation of return. I just touch base to see how you're doing.
Yeah, love that.
And I don't think there's enough people doing that now.
There's not.
Yeah, and we don't know where. And I always say this, listen, tragedy happens, like people, suicides or whatever, and touch base with people and just see how they're doing.
Yeah, man, time's fleeting.
Yeah. Yeah, we only have so much time on this earth.
Next up, what's a unique value bomb that the average person does not know about celebrity encounters, but you certainly have a lot of experience that would be able to provide them some insight, on the typical life or, I guess, posture of a celebrity?
Posture. I think I said it before. They're no different than us. I don't know if there's a clear answer on that. I'm trying to think of what I could say to sound. God. Gotta think about that.
Let's go back to that.
Yeah.
Two-part question.
Yeah.
What's your biggest, most proudest life accomplishment? And the flip side, what's the biggest setback you've experienced?
Biggest accomplishment, I was able to buy my mom a new car when I had a little bit of success. And that's something I've done even for employees. I do, no matter where I am in my cycle of financial success, or I like doing things for other people. And it really was like amazing to buy my mom a car. I mean, and I've had employees I've done things for that didn't always make economic sense, but it made sense for me. I remember I bought a client one time a motorcycle. It didn't make sense because the accountant didn't yield that much money, but my accountant even said, that's kind of silly. Yeah, but he's such a nice guy and I really like him. And so I have a soft spot for taking care of people.
You do?
Yeah, it's just in my DNA. And I'd rather have a little less than and make sure someone else is like, if I'm fulfilling someone's dream, like my mom having a car, like why not? Like, that's a once in a lifetime chance, right?
Dude, man, good on you.
Yeah, and then what was the downside? What was
the flip side. What's the biggest setback or lowest moment?
Setback, two things: going through a horrible divorce, and then not being connected to my kids for some time, and then the more, which would not happen now, but I didn't have the resources or knowledge or experience or relationships, is I filed for bankruptcy because I needed money to run my business, and I didn't know how to. I'll give you an example. I was doing really well, and my accountant said one time, "Hey, your payroll's due Friday, and it's $100,000." And she goes, "You got 30 in the bank." Well, how's that work? You have a lot of outstanding money. You need to get this money collected. And I didn't know. I didn't have research. I didn't know Dan Fleischman's of the world. I didn't know people. Hey, how do I get a credit line? How do I borrow money? Can I give you a piece of my company to put $1 million? I didn't know any of that.
Yeah.
I knew nobody.
Yeah.
I knew, holy shit, I had to cash out my pension from my police department and put it in the fund to pay my payroll. But after a short while, I couldn't. I had to restructure my business because I didn't know anything about finance.
For the audience there, what would you have done different? Like, what's the learning lesson? What's the nugget that they can say, okay, got that. I don't want to suffer like Bruce did. What should I do in a
There's so many resources now, people, banks, even friends, relationships. I mean, between even, people we know, right?
Yeah.
Hey, how do I need to borrow money. Even if to get a credit line to open up a gym, there's so many resources now. I just didn't understand how to get money from people. And I think I was also embarrassed. Like, wait, I have it going on.
Totally.
And I have to ask someone to borrow money to make my payroll. I couldn't get my head around that. But now I think there's so many, like I said, there's so many resources and relationships, right?
Going back.
And even if you, listen, I know people that, hey, I'll give up a percentage of my company. Can you help me fund it? People do that all the time now.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, there's no reason. Listen, one thing I tell people, don't be ashamed to ask for help.
Having that,
especially you have a success going on, you're going to let it tank because you have too much pride to ask for help.
It's factory installed in human nature, having that kind of ego that we all have. So just taking a step back, having that white belt mentality, humbling yourself, easier said than done. But that's really the message I'm hearing. For sure.
And I wasn't going to go to my parents. I mean, I showed you success. I bought you a car. Now, hey, by the way, I can't make payroll. Yeah. So,
all right, 2 more for you, Bruce. This has been awesome, by the way. Friends, I know you're getting a great value out of this. Your parting piece of wisdom to our audience who's interested in fitness and business and entrepreneurship, but for whatever reason, maybe they're scared. They've had a life experience that provides some hesitation. What's your parting piece of wisdom that will help them on their path?
I'll tell you this. I didn't meet the founders of Quest till I was 46 years old. And a lot of people, their trajectory is already set. They're already thinking, okay, my 401k, I'm going to retire at 55. So I always tell people this, self-doubt has been my biggest challenge. And now I'm undertaking this public speaking and doing podcasts, but self-doubt has been it the entire time. And I always tell people, when you have self-doubt, just sit back and think. I say this very proudly. I was just a dumb kid from New Jersey. I was just a D student from New Jersey. And I say, if I could do this, anyone could do this, because all it takes is hard work. And my dad said to me one time, listen, Bruce, you don't need an education. You just need to work hard. And that doesn't mean digging ditches. Just work hard with your brain, with your thoughts, how you're going to achieve things. So I think my parting words when people are thinking, I can't do this. I can't. Listen, I was 46 when I met. I had no aspirations of doing anything with that company. Sweat equity got me, pure sweat got me the equity I got from the company, but I wasn't promised anything. So I think it's never too late to dive into something. And don't let listen, we all have self-doubt. It creeps in my brain every day in some way. But
me too.
I have anxiety about speaking in public, but I'm going to do it because I know I have a story, right? And if I could change one person's life, it's worth telling the story, right?
Totally.
Yeah. So,
and I think you just said something that's so profound. It's like nothing is promised, nothing is guaranteed. You got one shot at this thing called life, one spin around the globe. Freaking take big shots, my friend. That's what you.
What's the worst case? Someone's going to say no. Okay, go to someone else. They're going to say yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wrote someone last week to get on their podcast and never replied to me. And I got a little offended, and I thought, well, okay, I'll just ask someone else. And
there you go.
But I'm going to be on his podcast. This is one of my friends asked. Called him, hey, you should have Bruce on your podcast. But I no one likes rejection. No. Right? Shit.
Yeah. Love it. Yeah. All right, my friend. This has been awesome. Last question for you. And the title of this podcast, for those of you watching on YouTube, is the Fitness CEO Podcast. So, Bruce, what does it mean to you to be a CEO?
To be a CEO just means to be a good leader, listener, and human being. Anyone can have the title of CEO. You can open up, put a shingle on your door and say, I'm the CEO, but it's how you treat everyone from the janitor. I say the janitor, but everyone from the janitor to everybody, right? And if you're not willing to be at their level at any given time, you really have to evaluate. A CEO just means being a good human being, because you need to be able to wash the dishes alongside that person and also do the books with the finance person and then have HR conversations. But a CEO just hiding in their office is not a CEO.
Amen.
Yeah. Unfortunately, there's no real, no one goes to school to be a CEO. Sometimes you have to learn the lessons hard. But being a good human being is really sums it up to me. Because you're going to count on all these people. Without those people, you're not going to be a good CEO.
Amen to that.
Yeah.
And that's what it's all about,
you're right.
My friend. That's what it's all about. Well, Bruce, before we connect today, I want to be able to provide the platform for our audience to continue to stay in touch. Do you have a website? Do you have social media? How can our followers still?
I do. I mean, most is Instagram, so it's Bruce E. Cardenas. And then, the website I think just got done. It's my name, Bruce, www.brucecardenas.com.
BruceCardenas.com.
Yeah.
All right, my friend. Before we wrap today, man, I just want to thank you for showing up. I am blown away. We got a chance to meet last year at Wes Watson's event, Bedros' event, and B's been singing your praises. It's been a few months in the books, but your energy, your enthusiasm, the way you show up, the way you love people, you can feel it, and there's no doubt in my mind that's been a staple of your success from the Marines, from the LAPD, from your own business and protection, and then, of course, with the monster business of Quest. So I want to acknowledge you and thank you for showing up with who you are today.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. It's been an honor.
It's been a pleasure as well, Bruce. Well, friends, I know you got a ton of value. Why don't you go ahead and share this episode with someone in need and give us a like and subscribe. That way we keep producing this content for you for free. So, Bruce, thanks again. And friends, we'll see you in the next episode.